talking, Brad.
I'm gonna go.
Let's be honest, we're all just bullshitting our way through the show.
Wild
anyway.
animal.
This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture from a given year that were important to us. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Giff.
Hey,
Brad,
Giff.
I think you actually changed up your intro a little
Well,
bit.
I was going to say,
did
I just realized as I started, I don't have my short little script in front of me this time, and I almost panicked. But how'd I do?
You did great. And Brad,
you did
your
great.
script,
If I didn't say anything, they'll never notice.
yeah, your script isn't short. It's probably average, just like everybody else's. It's fine.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm like, oh my God, can I do this from memory? Which should not be a problem because it's 2 sentences and it has been said about 100 times. But
Yes.
so we did it.
Well, hey, what are we going to start off with? What are we going to start doing right off the bat here as we start a new month?
I think that's a question for
Oh.
Pete.
Are we going to open the yearbook?
Yeah.
We are going to open the yearbook. What page are we opening the yearbook to this month,
I
Pete?
think that we're opening it to page 2005.
It's a big yearbook.
That's
It
a
is a
huge
thick book.
yearbook. Huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
I
and
like it.
tonight, when we talk about 2005, this first episode is going to be kind of an overview, as we are sometimes wont to do. But we do not have any guests tonight. We've had a lot of guests lately. Last month was a ton of fun. Hopefully you listened to
Yeah.
our fun games we all made up and played along.
I'm still
But if you do want to be a
reveling
guest,
in my victory.
Yeah, some of us won, some of us didn't. You know, it
Yeah,
was a good
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
some of us tried our best and did a good job at all.
Everybody gets
Anyway.
a trophy.
That's
If you
right.
do want to be a guest on our show or want to support us in any way, you can do that easily on the Buy Me a Beer, Buy Us a Coffee, whatever you want. You can call it either one.
Yep.
If you're not into buying beer, you can buy coffee.
If you're underage,
Pete will drink it.
I will drink either. I'll drink either. Do you drink coffee, Gifford?
no. Never been a coffee.
I know
drinker.
Brad doesn't. I
No,
know
I do
Brad
not.
is like, coffee's dumb.
Well, there's a lot of coffee in this house, though. I'm wife
I-
and son drink every day.
Yep.
Every morning for me too. Gotta have it.
you go.
But anyway, please support us if you're interested. It's a new month. It's a good time to throw that out there and think about how much this podcast has enriched your life. And if it has,
Yep.
go for it.
I do. Before we get into this,
If it hasn't,
episode,
you can still support.
I have a correction to make as I hearken back to a previous episode, and I got talked to by my wife. If you recall back to the episode where we were discussing the state fair, I concluded the Brad Paisley concert by saying, "Man, I don't have any stories to share about it." What she reminded me of, and this has nothing to do with this episode, by the way, but I have to go back to it, is she reminded me was that was the night that we got our car stolen. So, so yeah, we came back from the state
I
fair,
remember
so,
that happening.
Yep. So we had a Honda Civic, and we had parked at the Brookdale Shopping Center in Brooklyn Park,
Oh,
Minnesota, and they
There's
have
your
the
first mistake.
I know, that's right. And they have the buses, right, that take you to the state fair,
Yep.
which is great. We love doing it.
Mhm.
It's only like $5 a person, which
Yep.
is for the convenience and everything. It's great. And Jenny is 8 months pregnant at the time. This was, so I can go back. This was
Who's
about
the father?
14. This was 14. Still has not been determined. Have not had a paternity test yet. So, so anyway, we come back, and it was her friend named Jess that was with us. We came back, and the parking lot was totally empty. There were no cars whatsoever. And still, we could obviously see just a wide open parking lot. We're still clicking, with the little key fob. Clicking to see if we
You're
can
waiting
hear it.
to come out of the garage from underneath the parking.
Well, there has to be an
yeah.
explanation. So where is
lot.
it?
Yeah. Yep.
Trying
Well-
to get that cheese.
So what do we do? Of course, we have our cell phones. We call the police and we say, "Hey, our car has been stolen." And what was funny was they already knew. They're like, "Oh yeah, it took down our name and everything. Oh yeah, we know. We were at your house by like an hour ago, or
What?
whatever. It's like, what? How do you
Really?
know? They had recovered the car already before we even knew that it was gone, and because they found it in a ditch somewhere. And what the crooks had done was that they had taken the car, basically took it to a chop shop, stripped it all out of the good parts, left it so that it was just barely running, put all spare tires on it, and then they ditched it, like literally.
This
And
seems like
so
a
they had found
remarkably
it.
fast turnaround
Yeah.
for all of
We
this to
thought so
happen
too.
while
We
you were at a
thought so
concert.
too, but that's what these guys do. They're pros, right?
Well, that, but not
And
only
so
that, but the cops already finding it, caring enough to do anything about it right away, coming near, it's
yeah,
insane.
it's remarkable police work. And so they had been trying to get a hold of us, and they had talked to our neighbor, and so yeah, that was pretty crazy. The car was totaled, and that's when we got our Honda CRV right after that. So never did find out who did it or anything like that, but I had to share that story because I neglected to share it in the episode where we discussed the state fair.
Well, that
That
is
is a
pretty
it's a
good
whopper.
story. I've
That
never
is.
had a car
There you go.
stolen before.
Well,
No. Well, people know not to mess with Mr. Sorensen. I mean,
that's right.
he's pretty tough.
Yeah, that's it. All right, well, let's get back to
Anyway.
2005.
Where were we?
Yes.
And some
2005.
relevant memories.
Yes.
So
Okay.
2005, you know what, guys? That's 17 years ago already.
Oh, my
I'm very
goodness.
aware because
Isn't
I
that
have
nuts?
a
It seems like
17-year-old.
just yesterday.
2005 does not seem that long ago.
Yes.
Yes.
To some
So
of
what do
us.
you remember?
Well,
Well, go ahead.
I'll
Capri.
just jump in. Go ahead first. So I don't have a lot in this year. To begin the year, Martin Luther King weekend. Some college buddies. We would go to Mille Lacs to go ice fishing for the weekend. That was always a fun time. This was the year I was working. Well, more than 1 year, but I was working with a company called Image Floors out of Lakeville, or was it Burnsville at the time. My boss Rob and we would do flooring installations, and I had an uncle and aunt who moved down to Ballatin, they were building a house and asked me to come down to do all the flooring for them. And so I went down by myself. It was the first time I did a job of that magnitude by myself. Walk-in shower, tub surround, multiple bathroom floors, all the hardwood throughout the entire main level. I mean, it was quite a project, and that was in April. And in mid-May, my first son was born. And that, of course, was the big thing that happened for that year.
Who is the father?
Exactly. We still haven't figured it out. He doesn't look exactly like me or anything like that. So mid-May, we celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary on May 12th. And my wife's a bit of a planner, and she didn't want to have kids until we had been married for 4 years. So our son's due date was the day after our 4th anniversary.
Well done.
And he came a few days late, and he came on the 16th. And you think you're prepared to have a child, and you get the crib and you paint the nursery and you go to the classes and you figure out how to put a car seat in your car, and you think you know what you're doing, and then that kid shows up and you realize you're nowhere, you have no idea. It was exciting and scary, and for that reason I really don't have many memories of the rest of the year from 2005. It's all just a blur.
It is crazy.
Honestly, I still have no idea what I'm doing.
They just let you take that kid home from the hospital like the next day. It's like, are you?
Yeah, it's absolutely
nuts?
nuts.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
This is yours
that was
now.
pretty nuts.
Take it.
Yeah. Nurses do not come home with you, by the way. They're not going to be there to take care of it in the middle of the night anymore. But we had my mother-in-law came down and stayed with us for a little bit to help out, and but yeah, it was just a very quick learning situation, And God love him. He's 17 going into his senior year coming up this fall. And he was not a sleeper. I do remember that. That was very, very difficult. But yeah, the rest of the year was kind of a blur after that. So I will let Pete take over from here.
Well, I know that Brad's going to bring this up. The biggest memory that I have of that year was the Black Hills trip that we all went on in August?
I believe it was in July.
It was in July.
It
was
hot. I'm not sure. It was hot,
I could have swore it was August, but
maybe it was August.
In any event, it was July or August, so mid to late summer. It was hot for a lot of the trip. I know that. I remember basically we went as a group of how many people?
Well,
total
there were
10?
about 12 because
12.
You and Jenny, and then me and Kim, Chris and Erica, Larry and Melissa, and then Hummel,
Dave and
and
Sonia.
then Mark and Dave and Sonia. And Dave and Sonia and Mark weren't there for the entire time, but so what was that? 12?
That was 12.
Sure.
There you go.
Sure. So we'll go with 12. But what a fun trip that was. I remember one of my biggest memories of that was on the way out there. By the way, for the listeners that are not from Minnesota and South Dakota, the trip to the Black Hills is one of the most popular tourist destinations for Minnesotans because it's like a perfect driving distance.
It's pretty big for lots of people.
I know, but especially from Minnesota, just because it's like that perfect driving distance where if you don't want to drive all the way across the country, it's about a day drive.
Yep.
And so you can go out there. There's lots of stuff to see and do out there. One of the big things is called the Badlands that you hit when you're on your way out to the Black Hills. It's maybe an hour and a half on this side of Mount Rushmore. But anyway, as we're doing the Badlands, I remember Erica specifically, who was a friend of ours, how she was just walking around those mountains like she was a mountain goat, right? And like jumping over, like where it's like one beam of rock, like over a cliff that was like 1,000-foot drop. It may as well have been maybe not 1,000 feet, but
1,000 feet if it was an inch.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, the result would be the same if you slipped. Right. And I just remember I wanted no part of getting anywhere near that, and the sandals that I was wearing and how clumsy I am and all of that kind of stuff. It would not have gone well. But she was just like jumping rock to rock as if she's Super Mario. And it was just, I was just terrified for her, but she just did it like it was no problem. It was amazing. And we went to Waldrug, which is this little historical town. I don't even know how it even got its start, but it's so it promoted itself. It was this old drugstore in the town of Wall, South Dakota. Promotes itself all over the world, which is probably one of the greatest marketing gimmicks of all time. Right. But just to come to this one little spot, and there wasn't much there back in the day, I'm sure, but it just generated so much tourism, and now it's a cool little spot to stop on the way out there because it's got all these little shops. It's got like, I don't know, dinosaurs that you can sit on and covered wagons, that kind of thing. And they always advertise the free ice water. Yes. And it's like you come to this one little fountain. The water's not even cold, but it's like you can just, you can drink your water. And that was how, I guess that's how it got famous. And so, so we stopped out there. We saw this big dinosaur, watching and laughing at these kids that were terrified by this dinosaur that they had. Like it was, you push this button. I don't know if you had to put money in it or what, but it was like this.
No, it's a T-Rex that just roared every once in a while. It was on a loop.
Okay, that's what it was, on a loop. And then we got out there. We did all of the stuff. We camped. I think most of the rest of the people actually stayed in cabins at a KOA. We had
only me, Kim and I, and Larry and Melissa had a cabin. Everybody else was in tents.
Oh, we were in tents.
Yeah.
We were in a tent. But anyway, it was just a great time. One of those things, just great memories of all of us as friends before we all had kids. And it was just one little getaway. Brad, I'm going to let you take it away. I know that you've got more to add to that trip.
That's your whole memories of the year then?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of other memories of that year. It was just sort of a nondescript year. Otherwise, I think.
All right. Well, I don't know that I have a whole lot to add to the Black Hills trip other than it was an awesome because we went in like 3 cars and we tailgated all the way out there, which was awesome. And how many times have we done a trip like that with friends?
Yeah.
That was like one of the best ones. And the only reason Gifford must not have been there is because you had a baby, I'm gussing.
Yes, he would
Can't
have
imagine
been
why you
2
wouldn't have
months
been there.
old. Right.
Oh, really? I
Otherwise.
thought it was because we didn't like him and didn't invite him.
But I do remember that was a time where I had a small video camera and I videotaped stuff throughout that entire trip. And at the end, I made a really nice DVD for everybody that I don't know if anybody actually paid attention to or watched, but it was really
I would
cool.
love to see that. I would love to see that.
And one of the little scenes in there, it was just not important to the rest. Like it wasn't at Crazy Horse or Mount Rushmore or anything. But there was at the KOA, there was a mini golf course there that you could go play. And we went over there like every day, a bunch of times and played. And it became a joke that, Hummel just, I don't know, he could not make a putt or he wasn't very good or something. Or he was always telling you what was happening like he was a broadcaster. But he finally got a birdie on a hole. And I got that on camera and he jumped and it was funny. And it was probably my favorite part of the video. So that's a pretty
nice.
nondescript memory that I have of that trip. We also got up every day and went and ate pancakes, and we went to the Chuck Wagon, went to Reptile Gardens.
Oh,
we
the Chuck Wagon. Yes.
Did all the stuff. It was great. That was the trip too. At that time, Pete, you introduced us all to Budweiser Select, and we drank a really large amount of those at that Chuck Wagon,
Oh,
and then started drinking it when we got home too. I don't know, for like a year or something.
I remember at the Chuck Wagon, and this probably wasn't very honest of me, but I paid, I bought some Budweiser Select, and I paid, I don't know what the exact amount was, but the guy should have given me like a $5 bill. He gave me back a $20 bill, and I didn't realize it until I got back to the table or whatever. But I remember making a big deal out of that, like, hey, I got a free $15 or something like that.
More Budweiser.
But I gave
Select.
it back. Yeah, that's exactly what I gave it back to them in exchange for more Bud. So,
all right. So my other memories. So Gifford, you had a new baby.
Yes.
During this trip and during most of this year, my wife was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was pregnant.
Did they determine the father?
Yeah, I hope so.
There we go. Now all three of us. We got all three of us on that joke.
So that's part of the video. She's laying in a bed in the cabin. She's pregnant. She's starting already at that point, starting to get bigger, even though he wasn't born until January. But a lot of that year was we were in our new house for the first full year that we had bought. We were getting ready for a baby. We were painting, setting up the whole nursery, doing all the registering for stuff and picking out the sheets and all that stuff. So there was a lot of baby stuff going on to get ready. My work was quite busy that year because this was one of the best years because my dream schedule at my job for that time was it was a junior high, and I'd been teaching 8th grade since I got hired, and I wanted to switch to 9th grade. And then also I was going to teach the 8th grade honors class, and that was the best schedule I ever had, and I had it for like 10 years. And then we switched to a middle school about 6 years ago, and nothing's been the same ever since. But I had the best schedule. I had the best kids. It was awesome. And then I was also coaching. That year I was coaching basketball and golf. And that was just a lot of fun. It was girls, and they were fun, and you made a lot of great connections that way that you wouldn't otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Didn't we come? We came to one of your games at one point.
Yeah, everybody came to at least one game. Some came to more than one.
I think Gifford, you and I were at a game together. One of Brad's games. So. Maybe Dave too was there.
Yeah, I think so. In the summer of that year, I did have an interesting job for about a month. I was a paper delivery person for the Star Tribune because I was just looking for a way to make some extra money. And so I would get up at 3 a.m. and I would go pack them all up in the car, and I would have to deliver them no matter the weather. And it was not very fun. It was not quite as easy as I expected. And then for half of that time, I would come home. I get home about 6. I would lay in bed, take a quick nap till about 7, and then I got up and went to school and taught summer school for the whole morning after that. So
God.
compared to my summers now, which basically consist of golf anytime I want, that was a much different time in my
Yeah.
life. And then one other memory I have is we've talked about the Foo Fighters on this show many times.
Mhm.
One of my favorite concerts ever was this year. It was the first time I saw them at the XL Energy Center, which is like the best big venue in the city here. And it was not just the Foo Fighters, but they played with Weezer and a band I'm going to talk about in a minute, the Kaiser Chiefs, who I was in love with at that time. And it was 3 great bands in a row, and we had great seats. We were sitting in the club level, which I hadn't been in before. That was an awesome concert that I will never forget. So that's it. I did look up a couple of like what happened in 2005. Did either of you do that?
No, I'm lazy.
No.
Just
what
2
current
events. This is the year of Hurricane Katrina, which I do remember.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I remember
Yep.
that.
I remember. Yeah.
My other one I
Being at
found
my
kind
club.
of just doesn't seem right. This is the year YouTube was founded. And it just
Wow.
feels like that
Okay.
would have been around for so long. But when you really think about it, that makes sense. And so YouTube's only been
I don't know,
around
it
since
seems about-
2005, according to what I found.
Seems
Okay.
about right to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
All right.
Well, those are excellent memories, fellas.
Those
Ready to
are
move
good
on?
memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
move
I think
on.
so.
So in this episode tonight, we are just going to overview the year by giving our top 5s plus a little probably honorable mentions for music, movies, and TV.
Mhm.
And we'll just stop and talk about a few things as we go. So we're going to start with music. So how about Pete? What do you got for the year? What'd you find in 2005?
Yeah, so I just basically did songs that that stood out. So I'm going to start with I did my top 5 that I had. So this is the year, my number 5. This is the year that Hollaback Girl came out. Gwen Stefani. That was my 5. I did have a couple of Green Day. What's that?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. I had a couple of Green Day ones on my list. Number 4 was Wake Me Up When September Ends. Then, which my next one is coming up a little later. But the next one is Beverly Hills by Weezer. I loved The Killers, Mr. Brightside. That whole album,
yeah.
I had it. I loved it. I listened to it over and over again. I should actually get back into that one. Because I really enjoyed that album. And then also my number 1 song of the year was Boulevard of Broken Dreams, which actually I think was this the year that the American Idol whole CD came out. I
No,
didn't even.
if it was,
Oh,
we
it's
would
not.
cut. American Idiot is from 2004, and whenever we
American
do that
Idiot,
year,
yeah.
that spoiler alert, that will be my
Okay.
choice when we get to that year. But those songs were still big, obviously, in this year too.
Yes. So that's pretty much my list.
Excellent. Well, I
Giff?
will. I'll go
Gifford?
next. My number 5 is the same as Pete's. I got Hollaback Girl from Gwen
Oh,
Stefani.
maybe we'll have a bingo.
I do
doubt
not
it, though,
have
because I
that,
don't
so
I don't
You
think
don't?
Brad's gonna
Okay.
have
Well,
it.
all right.
no
so
thanks.
don't holla at Brad.
We
I
got
got
is there a term if 2 people are the same thing, if not all 3 but 2?
well, Brad would argue it's called
It's a
bad taste.
crossover. It's a crossover.
That's a crossover. We've got a crossover. Okay.
I got number 4 is Beverly Hills by Weezer.
Man.
I took Holiday from Green Day for my number 3.
Okay.
Best of You from Foo Fighters
There you
for
go.
my number 2. And my number 1 with a bullet. And I am not a fan of this particular artist, but Gold Digger by Kanye
Was that from this year?
Oh.
is just, and now I have to be clear here, the non-explicit version for this white Midwestern boy, of course, you know. But Jamie Foxx in that song is just awesome. The lyrics are hilarious.
That is
I
a
love
great
that song.
choice. I cannot stand Kanye West in any way, shape, or
No.
form. I never have, but I have always loved that song so much, and it is
I'm
so
with
great.
you.
Wow.
I'm
And
with
that's
you.
the only one.
Yeah, that's the only one for me too. I just can't stand anything else, but that song just, I love it. I love it.
We should have him on next week's episode.
Yes, we should. All right, Brad, that's my top 5 for '05.
All right. Well, I have a bunch of songs listed, and you probably won't have heard of most of these,
Yep.
so we'll see here. But when I was putting this together, what I realized, and this kind of fits into the Black Hills memory, this was at a time where I think we got our first iPod later that year. So like
Okay.
maybe in 2005, but not until like the fall sometime when I was trying to connect all this, because I was making some mixed CDs still at this point. And I had a mixed CD with all these songs on it. And I know we listened to a lot of these CDs in my car on the way to the Black Hills. And I looked for those the other day. I wanted to listen to it so bad. And I don't have it anymore. I threw it away when we moved. I still have some CDs, but I mean, I have all my regular CDs, but I threw away all those because I'm like, well, I'm never going to listen to these again. So I went on my music service and I made a playlist of all the songs I had, and I listened to that a whole bunch of times. So here are some of those songs that were on that list. One that you should remember probably is the All American Rejects' Dirty Little Secret.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a fantastic power pop song. That is just, God, that's a good song. My next one is the Fountains of Wayne. Had not a new album that year, but they put out some B-sides and with a single called Maureen. The White Stripes had I love the song My Doorbell, which came out that year. I also had Weezer because I had like 3 songs. Perfect Situation and My Best Friend. Is that the name of it? Those are also fantastic songs.
Mm-hmm. All of them were.
Mike Doughty, who was the lead singer of Soul Coughing, had a solo album that year, which had a couple of songs I really loved, like Busting Up a Starbucks. Garbage, you know Garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Probably don't know. They had an album that year, which had at least 3 songs that I loved off of that. Same with Beck. Beck had an album called Guero, which had E-Pro and Girl and Que Onda Guero on it, and that was awesome. One of the big songs of that year was Aqualung, Brighter Than Sunshine. Remember that one? That seems like, and if you heard it, you'd know it. That's like one of those songs that everybody knows, and I've never heard Aqualung referred to as a one-hit wonder, but I couldn't tell you anything else. But I remember this guy being on SNL, and this song is like really well known. It's in tons of movies. You know that one. 2 more songs, Stereophonics, Dakota, and then this song, I don't know, I liked it at the time, but it's one of those that people kind of turned on it. But the Plain White Tees, Hey There, Delilah. Part of the reason why I still like that is because there was this, it wasn't a Kids Bop, but it was like this free CD my kids got like 2 years later that had songs taken and sung. And that was on there, and my son listened to this a whole bunch of times, and I thought that was really cute. So I
once was within 10 feet from the Plain White Tees.
Wow.
Well, as I've probably said before, my previous job, I worked on a floor where there's a lot of musicians that came on because they were like making deals and everything with a major corporation. And one day the Plain White Tees walked right by my cube, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
You mentioned it.
Wow.
Yep.
So all those songs were on a mixed CD, and including a couple more here in my top 5. But I love going back and listening to those again. I've got a 2005 playlist now on my phone, and I'm going to keep that around. Number 5, I have the band OK Go, and do you remember the video? Here It Goes Again. We're on the treadmills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like one of the first big viral. That's like a YouTube viral video. I watched it tonight. It's so good, and it's a great song. And they had many other good songs in that album. And if you want to just have some fun, type in OK Go into YouTube and just watch their videos because they do amazing things.
I like fun.
Like literally amazing videos. They aren't just
Not
like
me, I hate it.
They're crazy. Number 4, I mentioned in my concert, the Kaiser Chiefs, who you guys probably wouldn't remember, but they had just awesome songs out that year with a CD called Employment. Number 3, Foo Fighters. You mentioned them, Gif.
Mm-hmm.
This is not my favorite Foo Fighters album, but it did have a bunch of great songs on it, and it was one of my favorite concerts. Number 2, some people like them and some don't. I am a big fan of Coldplay, and their album X and Y came out that year with Fix You and Speed of Sound and a couple of great songs. And then the album that I remember listening to probably the most from that year was Jack Johnson, In Between Dreams. It had Banana Pancakes and I can't remember the name of the first one, but Jack Johnson, it was his third album, and it was fantastic. So that's my music.
I like
Well
it.
done.
Nice work.
It was fun to go back and remember all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and listen to a lot of the stuff when you're making your list. It's just
Yeah, because I had a lot of those songs I hadn't listened to in so long. And when they first came on, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. And I listened to it like 4 times in a row.
Mhm.
So,
all right. We're jumping into TV next or movies?
television.
Television. Yes.
Which will be the subject of our next episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first for this one.
Excellent.
So I chose for next week, looking ahead, the show How I Met Your Mother, which we will talk much more in detail then, but it's one of my all-time favorite shows. And I rewatched it last year, and I actually like it more than I thought I did. It's amazing. So I do have a couple of honorable mentions. This is one of the years Joey was on. And
was it really?
Bless my heart.
Serious?
I watched Joey every week.
I probably watched Joey
every episode.
I think I did.
Yep. I watched like 2 episodes, and I was like, yeah, it's not the same.
Yep.
And then 2 shows that I don't know when I started watching them, but I watched these all through Netflix discs because they were on HBO. But Curb Your Enthusiasm and Entourage were big at this time. Mm-hmm. And then Arrested Development, which I didn't watch every week, but eventually I did watch, I think, all of them. But so that was my other one. And then, so my top 5. I kind of made a tie for 5 here. The show that I liked the most is Lost, but I don't remember when we started watching it, because I do remember distinctly we didn't watch the first season. And then my wife got a DVD that somebody had made of all the episodes, not like to buy, like they actually recorded them all and gave it to us. And after the first episode, we watched them all in like 2 weeks. I don't know. And at some point in season 2, we were caught up. And so that would have been late 2005, probably, or whenever.
Yep.
But the show I do know I watched that year was My Name is Earl with Jason Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Number 4, I have Nip Tuck, which we watched a lot. This is probably around the time when we stopped watching it, but I think this was season 3, and I'm pretty sure we were still into it at this point. Number 3, Gifford, I have Scrubs.
Awesome show.
I have How I Met Your Mother at number 2, actually, because I was ranking these based on how I remember watching them in 2005. And the show that at this point was in its second year, and then the third year that took everybody by storm, that everybody was talking about every week, was The Office.
Yep.
So at this time, The Office was my favorite, but How I Met Your Mother is my favorite overall.
I see that.
So
well done.
There we go. GIF.
Well, I've got one honorable mention, and I think I was watching it in this year. This was the year that it premiered, but the Colbert Report started in 2005.
Oh, yes.
And the reason I believe I was watching it was because I watched The Daily Show, and it came on right after it. So my number 5, I have The Office in there. And the reason I have it down at 5 is because The Office always made me so uncomfortable. I would have to watch it through open fingers, and I would laugh, but I was always so uncomfortable watching that show. But I was watching The Office, and that premiered that year as well. How I Met Your Mother premiered that year, and I was watching that. I have that at my number 4. My number 3 is The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. Number 2, I rag on this show because I stopped watching it because I thought it got so stupid. But Lost, I was so deep.
Oh yeah, you and me.
I mean because Lost started in 2004, so 2005 would have been the end of 1, beginning of 2.
Yeah.
And oh man, was I mean, I was so into that show. I recorded it every week, and on VCR, I think. I don't think we had
on the old VCR tape.
I guess if you're recording it.
Yeah. And I would sit upstairs and watch it, and I would come down and tell my wife about it. I'm like, this show is just crazy. And she finally got into it. And I think she carried on
So did
after I quit.
You didn't.
But yeah, but I got her into that. I thought it was awesome. So that was my number 2. And my number 1 is Scrubs. I love Scrubs. I love JD and Turk, and their love affair with each other is just one of the best friendships ever on television.
What was your number 3?
Daily Show.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So that is that's my top TV of 05.
Yes, we were watching a lot of the same stuff.
Yes, we certainly were.
Pete?
Yeah, this was kind of a transitional year where we kind of moved. This was when a lot of reality TVs kind of started to take hold, and there were some shows that we started to get into a bit more than others. I actually only had 4 on my list because as I was going back through, there wasn't a ton. I don't know if I was watching a lot of TV at that time, but one thing that we did used to watch early on, we did enjoy watching American Idol. And then it just got kind of old and stupid after a few years. But this was when it was still good. This was actually season 4, probably the most important season of American Idol, because anybody know who won on American Idol in season 4?
Carrie Underwood is my guess.
Carrie Underwood is correct.
Wow.
Yes. And I remember that being
GIF.
because everybody knew that she was going to win. Everybody knew that she was going to win because she had that stage presence. She was really hot, and she could sing.
That is not a past tense situation, Pete. That is still currently
that's
happening.
correct.
Yeah.
But I remember I was actually cheering for the guy that she went up against, whose name was Bo Bice. And the reason I liked him is because he was more of a rock and roll kind of guy. I think he did some Pearl Jam songs that were really good, and I thought he nailed everything that he set out to do. And so just the general kind of music genre that he was more into, I enjoyed what he did. Mm-hmm. So I was pulling for him, but of course Carrie Underwood beat him. And
well, then clearly he got the last laugh because he's the bigger star now.
Yeah, right.
She couldn't give him this one thing because obviously she was going to be huge. She couldn't even let him have that one thing.
The next one I remember watching it a lot back in the day, in around this time frame, and it came across as I was looking at it. Reno 911. Gifford, I'm sure that was a show that you probably would watch more.
I never got into.
I can't picture Brad watching it, but that show is just like freaking hilarious.
I went back maybe a couple months ago, and I don't remember what service it's on, but I started just watching it. And I mean, it's funny. Yeah, it's very funny. I just couldn't get into it.
It was one of the early, and this was right around the same time as The Office was on, as you already mentioned. But this was sort of one of the original mockumentary style comedies. Mm-hmm. And so that was the way it was done. And back then it was fresh and new, and it was just hilarious. Number 2 on my list, Gifford, I'm guessing you watched this one, 24. That was big. And really, you did
never got into 24? No.
Oh wow.
I was thinking he did, but I think I'm thinking of you, Pete.
Yeah. Well, Dave was a big 24 guy, right?
I think so.
An AB.
Yeah.
But obviously it was just a great concept. How it went. Every season was a 24-hour period of time. Which was kind of crazy when you think about it, like all the, it's obviously very stretched on what could actually be accomplished in 24 hours. But it was just
your
a
little
really
car
well
story
done,
seems like it would fit right in there. That was like 3 hours.
They should. Yeah.
Stolen, stripped, found, brought back, contacted, hour passes. You finally get home. Yep. I don't buy it. That's made up.
Maybe it was the police that were involved in it. And I don't know. And then my number 1, you've already talked about it ad nauseum, The Office. So I had that one again, just like I had already mentioned, kind of that original mockumentary style comedy. Mm-hmm. I just find hilarious. So that is my list.
All right. Why don't you kick off movies, Pete?
I will kick off movies. I have 7 movies, so I guess I can call that two honorable mentions and then a top five. Honorable mentions. I had Sahara on my list. I remember
Oh, yeah.
watching that in a good movie. I loved Matthew McConaughey. I do even more now after the great speech that he gave after the Udalvi shootings, and you know, a little
That
bit
was
of
the
a
movie.
sad topic there, but
I went to see that movie in the theater. I remember I went like one afternoon by
yeah.
myself, and that was the movie I think where I realized he can carry a movie by himself. I mean, it was
Yes, that
there
was
was
that was kind of
Steve
his
Zahn.
big breakout.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe not his
yeah, because
breakout.
the breakout was
A
what was
Time
Time
to
to
Kill.
Kill,
A Time to
Yeah.
Kill, yes.
which was like
But
10
that was
years
Samuel
before
L.
that.
Jackson. Yeah, it was
No,
Samuel
but
L.
he
Jackson
wasn't
that was kind of
carrying.
carrying it too, and
Right.
Sandra Bullock
Yeah.
was in it too.
Exactly. But he carried that movie, and I walked out going, he's a leading man in a action movie. Like he can do that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of action movies, Gifford, I know this is on your list. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I had on my honorable mention. It was one that I think that we may do in an upcoming episode, still to be decided. So I won't give too much away there. Then we get into my top five. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is my favorite of all of the Harry Potter movies. Not sure what I like about it. I just think that it's well done and the storyline is pretty cool. I thought it was the most fun of the movies. Number four, I'm guessing Brad has this one on his list, the movie Crash with Matt Dillon.
That's nowhere on my list.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
very good movie.
It won the Oscar,
movie.
but everybody says it's the worst Oscar-winning movie of all time. I don't remember it at all. I watched it once, and I know I liked it when I watched it.
That would be one of the movies that'd be the type of movie that Brad would say.
It's
yes,
supposed to be
this is awesome."
problematic, and
I don't know. I saw it a couple of times back in the day. Maybe if I rewatched it, I would think it sucks. But now the next one, number three, I did not like the remakes and everything of the Star Wars movies and some of the newer ones that they made. However, I thought Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, was awesome. It was the best of all of the newer Star Wars movies that they've made. Obviously everybody remembers the lava scene at the end. It had the great action scene. It had how Darth Vader became Darth Vader. Great movie. Now, number two on my list was Batman Begins. We talked about the Michael Keaton Batman. This was, I think now looking back, they've done and redone the Batman movies so many times, it's boring. But when this one came out, I thought it was really cool how they did it. It was fresh and new at the time. So I had that on my list. My number one is one that we are going to be talking about during this month. Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash movie with Joaquin Phoenix. It was, as I recall it, it was one of, I think it was actually the last movie that I had actually gone to see with my family, meaning my brother, my mom, and my dad, all together. And Jenny was there too. And I think my brother's at the time probably new wife or fiance at the time, but we all went to go see it. I think it was like in Eden Prairie. My parents were in town. My dad is a huge Johnny Cash guy, so it was like, let's go see this as a family. So that's what we did, and absolutely loved the movie. I could watch it and rewatch it many times. So there you go. So that's my list.
All right. I have a few that you didn't say. These are my honorable mentions that you didn't, or that you did or didn't say. So Red Eye with Rachel McAdams on a plane, and the guy, what's his name? He was the Scarecrow in Batman Begins.
Scarecrow. Yep.
That's a really cool movie. King Kong came out that year, and I didn't love that movie, but we saw that, and Kim was like 9 months and pregnant. I mean, I think it was like 2 days before she went into labor. So we always remember that. I mean, it was this long movie. We sat through it in the theater. We were looking for something to do to pass the time. And it was a big movie. But so it's always associated with the birth of our first son. So actually that was 2006, I guess. Well, I don't know what the date was we saw it. It was probably the end of December, whatever.
Well, it came out in 2005, so we'll allow it.
Madagascar came out that year. That's a good movie. I got Harry Potter down too, Pete, and nearly made my top 5. I really like the movie Fun with Dick and Jane with Jim Carrey and Tay Leone. That is a funny movie.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Seriously? You?
Yeah, I might have to
It's
watch
good.
that.
Jim Carrey, always great and fantastic. Tay Leone, great. It's funny. Top 5, I have Walk the Line at 5. We also saw that right around the same time as King Kong too, so that's kind of the same time period. I have Batman Begins at 4 as well. Here's one. March of the Penguins. Remember how big that movie was?
Yes.
Huge. Yeah.
Everybody
Yes.
and I loved it, and that's my number 3. It was a really fun movie to watch.
Morgan Freeman, right? I mean,
And
he
then my
was-
top 2 are the ones that I remember the most from this year, and I can't believe you didn't have either one of these, Pete. The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Wedding Crashers. Those go.
Mhm.
I actually
Oh,
saw
I should have
them.
had Wedding Crashes.
I saw them
Crashes,
multiple
yeah.
times, but we saw those two movies back to back at our drive-in, which was really fun because we don't go to the drive-ins very often. There aren't very many options for that, and that was quite the double bill. So those are the two that I remember the most. That they aren't in the top comedies anymore for me, like some other ones are, but they're still great. I mean, if they're on TV,
Yeah.
they're gonna be funny.
Yep. Well, that
Mhm.
scene in 40-Year-Old Virgin where he's having the hair removed is pure comedy
Classic.
gold. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just excellent. Well, I got a few extra honorable mentions that haven't been said yet. The movie Doom came out this year, and that was one of the first computer games that I played. And it's not a great movie, but there is a scene in the movie where it goes into the first person shooter mode, and it's exactly like the video game was when you played it on the computer, and I thought that was really cool. Plus The Rock is awesome. I mean, that's just the way it is. Dukes of Hazzard came out this year,
Ooh,
and for my
I
money,
saw that.
few women have looked better on screen than Jessica Simpson in that movie. So
Yeah, but
I'm
still,
gonna
that wasn't enough to carry the movie. I agree with you, but it wasn't enough. I thought it was a terrible movie. I
I
was really
enjoyed it.
disappointed because I loved it, and there's a couple of funny parts. Like I remember where they were like, just tearing out of their driveway with the General Lee, and then all of a sudden, next scene they cut they're in Atlanta and they're in a traffic jam. That was pretty funny, but
Well,
but
and
other
again,
than
the
that, it was-
soundtrack for that movie is outstanding. I love the music.
yeah.
And the actors, I like the actors in the movie.
The guy that played Roscoe, I hated him.
Oh yeah, I'm not a fan, but the guy who plays Cooter is Kickner, and Sean
David
William
Koechner,
Keckner.
love that guy.
He's excellent. You got Willie Nelson and Johnny Knoxville. I like the actors. So I like that one. Legend of Zorro came out that year. I know I didn't watch it in 2005, but this was one of the big movies that our son really enjoyed, and that was Chicken Little. We'd watch it on DVD, and I just think that's hilarious. There's a great line in that film where they're playing a baseball game and Chicken Little gets a hit and he starts running down the third base line. And I think it's Harry Shearer is the announcer, and they get him turned around, running the right way. And he goes, "I can't believe I'm saying this, but he's actually rounding home." And I thought that's just a hilarious line. So I think that's it for my honorable mentions. My number 5. I like the movie Hitch. Will Smith and who's the woman in that one? Help me out here. Eva Mendes. Yes. And I should have wrote all this down. But anyway, I enjoyed that one. Number 4, and almost my pick for this month, Waiting. The movie Waiting about the guys working at Shenanigans, Ryan Reynolds and Justin Long. Excellent fun romp there. My number 3, Wedding Crashers. My number 2 is Batman Begins. And my number 1, which I think we'll be talking about this month, is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I think it's hilarious. obviously two beautiful actors.
I was looking that up
Um,
today, and I didn't realize it was directed by Doug Liman, director of Swingers.
Well,
And
you
that
got
made me-
Vince
right?
Vaughn
That
in
made
there.
me excited to go back and watch it again, because I think I've
Yeah.
only seen it the one time in the movie theater.
Oh, I watch it all the time when I see it on television. I absolutely love that film.
I look forward to it.
I think it's hilarious how between this couple that the wife is by far the much more professional and better assassin of the two, and she just kind of leaves him in the dust. I think it's
And-
great.
Walk the Line will be fun to watch too, but I
Mhm.
can't think of it without thinking of Walk Hard,
I know.
which I can't
Dewey
separate the
Cox.
two in my
Also have to
head
do.
because
I know,
Walk Hard
I
I've
know.
seen a million. We're going to talk about that movie too someday, and that is one of my all-time favorite comedies, and it's so well done that it's almost like that was Walk the Line, but
Mhm.
Yeah,
it's not.
no, totally different film.
All right, anybody got anything else to add?
No, I like this year. I'm looking forward to the rest of the month. And
Yeah, there
covering
is a
the
lot of good
subjects we
stuff.
have.
I enjoyed going back, especially that music stuff that I forgot about, and I think we did a pretty great little overview of the year there.
We're
Stay
the best.
tuned.
You guys mind if I
Yes.
put on a little Preacher Row?
I
I'd love to hear it.
encourage it.
Good, because I got to pee.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Hands tied, tell me on my back. Heart down and I look to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do. Hang high if you want to.